Hello and welcome to your first concept session. I'm Dr. James Santa. I'm the Director of International Academics at the Common Mission Project. So today, for this first concept that we're going to be going over, it's really going to be your introduction to H4, the pedagogy, how the course is going to be laid out, and some of the expectations you have as a student and as a student team in this flipped classroom experience. So the first question you may be asking is, well, what is H4? Well, it's a university program that brings interdisciplinary students together to apply entrepreneurial approaches and tools to rapidly understand, solve, and deploy solutions to sponsored problems. You're also going to be working on real world problems. So these are things that are not just hypothetical. They are real problems that individuals have that they feel on a daily basis. We're going to teach you the Lean Launchpad methodology, and then we're also going to help you build your network in innovation and entrepreneurship. Even if you're not thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, every single one of you, when you go out into the workforce, is going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to be somebody who's going to be bringing innovative ideas, processes, and ways to solve problems that you've never been able to look at before until you've actually had an opportunity to learn this methodology. So it's a very exciting opportunity, not only to work with a real world problem and work with individuals that are very, very adept at what it is they're trying to figure out, but you're also going to build a really incredible ecosystem of individuals that will help propel you for your future opportunities within both higher education, but also for your professional aspirations. It's a little bit of history on Hacking 4. Hacking 4 started out as a Hacking for Defense program at Stanford University in 2015. It was really predominantly focused over a spring break period, and it was a minimum viable product, a term you're going to hear on later concepts, about can we actually solve these really, really enormous problems in national security and do it very quickly. And what the individuals who created this program, Steve Blank, Pete Newell, and Joe Felter, figured out is there's something here with this methodology that can be used to not only solve problems, but to really understand what the problem actually is and what they're feeling, what the beneficiaries are feeling. Another term you're going to hear a little bit later on. Right now, the program has evolved. We are in 47 different universities in Hacking for Defense. We also have presence in Australia and the United Kingdom, and we have programs like Hacking for Defense, Hacking for Impact, Hacking for Homeland Security, and Hacking for Diplomacy. So in terms of what you can expect in terms of objectives is that you're going to learn the Lean Launchpad principles or the H4 methodology. You're going to be working on a real problem. You're going to develop really excellent employment skills. You're going to develop speaking and listening skills, and you're going to get hands-on experience with a very difficult problem domain and also interact with experts in the field. So what are the objectives even further? It's a class. It's about exploring a problem. Notice I'm not saying solving. And it's an opportunity to examine that problem and test and validate hypotheses, something we'll talk about in future concept sessions. What is the course not? It's not an incubator. So it doesn't mean that we're actually going to be coming with a product that we're actually trying to field and market immediately. We can't do that because we don't even know what the problem really is. It's not about solutioneering. And solutioneering is kind of what I just mentioned, where we have a solution that's in search of a problem. No, we are going to really work our best to define what the problem really is. And lastly, you're not working for your sponsoring organization. You're not a consultant. You're not being paid for this in a traditional employment situation. You're not here to solve their problem necessarily, but to really understand what the problem domain is, define that problem, and hopefully come away with a path forward on what a solution could look like. So your ecosystem team, this is what it could look like. And this ecosystem team is an example of a team that would be working within the government arena. So think about Department of Defense, the Department of State, Homeland Security. But these are very similar in terms of ecosystem in which you could expect your teams to be working with. So you'll have your government partners. It could also be an industry partner, your instructor teams. You're going to have a government problem sponsor, your mentors, and industry mentors. So moving on to aims and objectives more broadly for the H4 program. So one of the things that we're really looking to do in this program is to build a generation of empowered and skilled students. So the skills that you're going to learn are not necessarily found in just one textbook. It's not something theoretical like if you were taking a physics course. Nothing wrong with that. Theoretical foundations are exceedingly important. And a lot of the things that you're going to learn in this program are absolutely based on sound theory, or taking the practical and immersion aspects of learning to you in this program. So you're going to be building this ecosystem of understanding of your network. You're going to have increased awareness and familiarity with the sponsors that you're working with, and you're going to get hands-on experience on using a process for a real-world problem. So your objectives very broadly are to demonstrate understanding and excellence in the H4 methodology, to develop a really strong understanding of the problem and ultimately the solution domain, develop and apply those workforce skills, as we've already talked about, things like complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, those types of things, and develop and apply research skills. So a lot of what you're going to be doing is founded in really strong qualitative research premises, as well as a little bit of quantitative, but more qualitative. And what I mean by that is the getting out of the building and talking with individuals that really understand these pain points that would benefit from your solution. So what are your successes? A validated problem. The problem that you start with is very rarely the problem that you end with. And this is because you're going to get out of the building and conduct a great deal of discovery. You're going to have a pathway to a solution. And that could be an actual physical widget. It could be a policy. It could be a process. It could be training, any number of different things. It's not just handing something physical over to your sponsor. And then you're also going to, as I mentioned before, developing those really important professional and entrepreneurial skills. You're going to learn how to communicate and how to listen. And not listening so you can respond, but listening for the sake of listening. H4 successes, they're not necessarily solely focused on cyber and tech. They could be a component of it, but it's very interesting when a sponsor provides a technical problem, how often they go back to policy, training, or adoption issues that have to be responded to first. And you're not going to necessarily hand over something physical to a sponsor. If you build something, it's your IP, so keep that in mind. Now, the pedagogy, the basis for everything on what you're going to be learning about for this course, whether it's your quarter, your semester, or whatever it may look like. So what I'm going to suggest to all of you is that several of these slides, and I'll call them out, are things that you should save and have available to you as you're conducting all of your beneficiary discovery, preparing for your presentations. Anything that has to do with the H4 method, whether it's out of the classroom experience or your presentations, are going to be really focused on these core canvases and concepts that we're going to be covering next. So what's really different about the H4 classroom is that it's a flipped model. It means that faculty are not out in front lecturing. As you see, you have this video. We provide these resources to you so that you've got something you can go back to time and time again. But what that means is that student teams are front and center of the classroom experience every single class. So when you go up and do your first presentation, you're not going to know a lot about your problem domain, and your instructor team is going to provide a lot of targeted feedback throughout your presentations. It's a very different type of environment because the faculty are not necessarily subject matter experts in your problem domain, but we do know the process really well to get you to understand your problem domain. We're going to push you, we're going to encourage you, and we're going to challenge and inspire you throughout your entire time taking this H4 class. It's going to be a different type of experience than you've ever had in a university classroom. You're going to get much more involved with the work that you're doing. You're going to care more because it's going to be a lot of your own effort. And it's going to be chaotic at times, so that's okay. The bottom line is this experience is going to be extremely worthwhile and gratifying for you as students, but just keep in mind the experience is going to be different and a different type of stress than you've ever encountered. But your student teams, you're up front in front of the classroom every week, presenting your work, getting feedback, and then getting some experiential learning opportunities, and then being asked to get out of the classroom and conduct your discovery. Well, what can you expect? Well, your materials are going to be provided beforehand. So these types of recordings, or these concepts that you're going to be introduced to you, are going to be expected that you're watching before class so that you can jump into your presentations, prepare for your experiential learning, and then go off and do your beneficiary discovery. So we're going to do a lot of activities like that in here in your H4 course. But the bottom line is learning is by doing. You're going to apply the theories and the concepts and the techniques that we're teaching you every single week, and then apply those to your discovery, to your minimum viable product, to your mission model canvas, your value proposition canvas, and all the tools that we're going to be talking about in this concept and in future concept sessions. So what can you expect in terms of your flipped classroom is that starting within your second week, you're going to be presenting your work. You're going to be presenting your first stabs at your mission model canvas and your other tools that we're going to talk about. So it's expected that each student team is going to present their work on a weekly basis. Your goal as a student team should be a minimum of 10 interviews a week, with the goal of 100 to 125 interviews by the time you finish your quarter or semester. My suggestion is that 70% around that number should be unique interviews. But if you've got somebody that you talked to in week 3 that was a really great resource and you've got a new angle that you'd like to discuss with them, absolutely would encourage you to reach out to them again. Your presentations are going to be about 10 to 15 minutes in length as prepared, but with feedback will probably go a little bit longer than that. And your interviews that you've had over the week should really be discussed in depth as part of your presentations. Another thing that's suggested, but not all universities will do this, is a weekly student blog, just to maintain information on where you're going every week and to have a collaboration between you and your faculty members about what it is that you've been working on. These blogs will be it'll be independent student blogs, or it could be as a team, really at the discretion of your faculty and your teaching team. Now, the feedback loop is something I've touched on a little bit before, but one of the really unique things about the H4 experience is that you're going to be getting feedback very frequently within, again, that second week, that first week when you're doing your first presentations. It's going to be a conversation between your teaching teams. It's not there to tell you that we know everything as faculty, because the problem domain may not be something that we have fluency in nearly as much as you will by the end of the semester or the end of the quarter. This is something that you're going to be educating us on, but we know the process. We're going to provide guidance without being prescriptive, because again, we don't always know what the answer should be. We're going to challenge you and ask about your hypotheses and the information that you're trying to elicit from your discovery sessions every week. And it really does simulate what happens in a startup or in a smaller, any type of organization, really, where you have to iterate very quickly, take information back, digest that information and move on with it and see what kind of things you have to learn for the following period. Now, this comes from a work called Radical Candor, but it's been slightly modified for the H4 experience. You'll notice that relentlessly direct is what is highlighted there. It's circled. And that's the type of feedback you can expect to receive as part of your H4 experience. We are not there to break you down, to be manipulative, to be aggressive or obnoxious, or to be ruinous. We are going to challenge you every step of the way and ask you questions and really challenge your lines of thinking to grow the way that it is that you are becoming critical thinkers, not only in this problem domain in this course, but mostly in general. So expect feedback to be targeted, not mean. The faculty aren't going to be there to be jerks, but we are here to make sure you're getting the most appropriate feedback and asking questions and challenging you along the way at every step of this process. So a couple of things here. We're going to get into some key terms and tools for you to understand. And this provides, again, the basis in which you'll be conducting all of your work throughout this course. So what is Lean Launchpad? As I kind of mentioned, it's a framework that was developed by Steve Blank, but a lot of the tools come from a gentleman named Alex Osterwalder. Absolutely encourage you to take a look at his resources on his website. He is a tremendously insightful individual, and you'll notice there's a few links on this slide. Please go check those out. Lean Launchpad comes in 3 distinct parts, but they're all interconnected and interrelated. The first being the mission model canvas, which we use to frame our hypotheses or our assumptions. The next one is your beneficiary discovery. That's the getting out of the classroom, getting out of the building experience of talking with individuals and collecting information from them based on their lived experiences, their pain points, and their desired gains, terms you will see in future concepts. And then a minimum viable product, which can just be as simple as a drawing on a piece of paper that will show an individual beneficiary or subject matter expert what you're thinking the solution pathway could look like. And we'll have a couple of examples of that in a future concepts. Minimum viable product, at least for the early parts of your course, not a predominant focus for you as student teams, but something you have to be aware of and something that you will produce as an artifact as you go throughout your H4 experience. This is a mission model canvas, and right now it's blank, and you have no idea what you're looking at, and that's okay. The following slides are ones that I'm going to absolutely recommend that you keep as reference. Either, print them off and have them, with you in your notebook, or have a PDF copy of this on your computer or on your tablet device, whatever it may look like. This is the cornerstone foundation of everything that you're going to be doing throughout your H4 experience. So what is it? It's a model used throughout the course to test, augment, or pivot from hypotheses. Each box, even though you don't know all the areas, it's going to be an iterative process at first. It is going to contain hypotheses that you're going to test each week. It's living. It's going to be changing every single week, maybe after every single beneficiary discovery session. And this is the basis of your presentations from a week-to-week basis. The way that we've broken down the mission model canvas really is in 3 distinct parts. And it's not from left to right, or, you traditionally read, at least for English speakers. it goes from desirability on the right, which is the predominant focus of the mission model canvas, especially early on, feasibility there on the left, and then viability at the bottom. So this is another visualization of that three-legged stool approach, as we like to call it at Common Mission Project, about what this looks like. So again, another visual reference for you to keep in your back pocket as you continue to iterate throughout this program. And then the next few slides are definitions of each of these individual boxes. So these are the three that I'm really encouraging you to actually have available to you to bring up. And I'm hoping that throughout the course that you start to really have these definitions in your mind cemented as to what should be going in these boxes. So what I'm not going to do is read through every single one of these. Trust that you can do that and take these and learn them. And then every time you fill in your first guesses on these boxes, that you're going back to these definitions and asking yourself, am I meeting the intent? Because your faculty member, your teaching team, your TA are going to be doing the exact same thing. So then again, a little bit more dive into the mission model canvas. One more dive into your mission model canvas in terms of just a further explanation. So again, keep these in mind. It is integral that you understand these components from a week-to-week basis and that you're making educated guesses on the information that should be going into these boxes as you're filling it out and preparing your presentations. So the next key part, as discussed in the Lean Launchpad in 3 pieces, is beneficiary discovery. Now, beneficiary discovery is at the heart of how you get to fill out your mission model canvas. And really what it is getting out of the building and talking to as many individuals that are within this domain as possible. And that could include individuals that are in academia. So think your faculty members or researchers there at your university. It's going to be individuals in industry. It's going to be government individuals. It could be people that are in the military if you're working with hacking for defense or working in the intelligence community. It's a wide array of individuals that are within the space. So your responsibility is to think about, well, who do we need to talk about from this perspective to really understand this problem domain very richly? The first part is going to come from your sponsors. They're going to generally provide a list of 10 to 15 cleared contacts. And those are individuals that you may not want to talk to on day one, but within the first few weeks, you want to be scheduling time with these individuals to actually have a good understanding of what it is they do, what their pain points are, what their desired gains look like, and then what would it look like for you as a team to ultimately have a solution pathway forward for them once you've really understood the domain. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get to 100 names, 125 individuals that you've spoken to throughout your H4 experience. How are you going to do that? Well, I already mentioned you're going to have some cleared contacts. One of the things you're going to ask those cleared contacts at the end of every conversation is, who else can I talk to and who can you introduce me to? You're also going to have to start looking on places like LinkedIn. If you don't have an account, now's a really great time to get into that platform, because you have to find 100 individuals as a team at minimum to speak with. Well, you're not going to send out 100 emails and get 100 responses. The likelihood of that is quite slim. What that means is that you're thinking about maybe you're going to get a 10 to 15 response rate from your emails. So how many names does that mean that you need to be thinking about? Well, much more than 100. You're looking at several hundred individuals that you're going to have to reach out to over the course of your quarter or semester to get to that 100 names. So remember that you're going to have to do a lot of legwork. This can come from LinkedIn. It can come from your own personal networks. I guarantee many of you who are watching this have experience in these ecosystems that you're going to be exploring for your H4 problem. Use them if you can. It could be a friend, a family member, somebody that you've had professional experience with. Think about conference proceedings or literature or rand.org as a place where you can find people who have experience in these ecosystems. Reach out to them and ask for an interview. Your .edu email, if you're at university, is going to be a hugely powerful tool for you to break down barriers where individuals may not want to talk to you or may not want to talk to someone because they have a conflict of interest if it's going from government to industry, for example. So another tool that you're going to see here is the value proposition canvas, which is the bottom right of this slide. But what I want you to notice, and even though this is coming from the business model canvas, no worries there, is that the value proposition canvas is going to be something that you're going to be using throughout your beneficiary discovery. Now, the one thing that I would highlight here is your value proposition canvas is going to be really useful for your beneficiaries. If you're speaking to somebody who isn't going to necessarily be the direct beneficiary, and that term really means you solve this problem, who's going to give you the biggest hug? So that's the way that I would encourage you to frame it, to conceptualize it, is if we get this right, who's going to be the happiest, who's going to give us that high five or that hug? Well, this is a way that you can actually help figuring out, well, who are these individuals? And that is your value proposition canvas, which we see here. And the best way to frame this particular canvas is the right side is in the beneficiary's own words. So what are their jobs? What are they doing? What pains do they currently have with their current roles and the current operations or whatever what's in that problem domain? And then you've got gains there on the right-hand side. And that's the desired gains they'd like to see with a potential solution. So frame it as, if this person could wave a magic wand and all these things would be solved, what would that look like for them? On the left-hand side of the canvas is now your words. And this is going to be a resource for you to start figuring out, well, now that we've spoken with a number of individuals, how can we create these gains that they're looking for based on a product or service or innovation that we could create? How can we relieve pains with that product, service, or innovation that we would create based on the discovery? And what that helps you see over time is as you collect more beneficiary sessions, is that you're going to start seeing what we like to call data saturation points or qualitative saturation, where the same themes and the same ideas start popping up time and time again, which will start to clue your team in that you're going down an appropriate path. Beneficiary discovery is in 2 phases, but it is iterative. So the first thing you have to do is exactly what you see here. You have to identify those individuals. You have to identify what their gains and pains look like, what their value proposition is, something that we're going to talk about in future concepts, and develop an idea of the products, services, innovations that would help fulfill the needs that they have to relieve those pains. Then you're going to create an MVP as you start to have more interviews. So quickly and cheaply, again, could just be a drawing. We're going to talk about the MVP in a future concept. You're going to test that MVP, which means you're going to ask questions, see if there's any gaps, see if there's something that you misunderstood from your previous discovery sessions, and then you're going to do it all over again. This is never done. It's just good enough. So what is a minimum viable product? It's a way to demonstrate your solution or product to a beneficiary. It's incremental, and it does not need to be a physical widget, a physical thing. What often happens is that MVPs are confused with prototypes. MVPs are the minimum thing you need to test a hypothesis and do not require a physical manifestation. So a really good example is if it's something that you're going to build an app for a smartphone, you don't actually have to program that app. Actually, I'd encourage you not to waste time doing that. It could be simple as a drawing on a piece of paper and a PowerPoint on a wireframe outline tool that you can use on the web, but it's not necessarily a physical manifestation in any practical sense of what the end solution could look like. Prototypes are typically used in engineering environments where they would actually be able to show something to someone. But the problem is oftentimes is that they've already gone through and understood what their discovery looks like and are building something that is beyond their MVP. In this case, because you don't even have an MVP to start with, don't worry about prototyping and strongly encourage you not to waste your time on building prototypes initially. And that is the end of your first concept session. So again, as I've mentioned, this is a lot of information for you to be aware of and that you're going to be learning over the course of your semester. It's okay that it feels daunting at first and that these concepts are brand new and why is the mission model canvas from right to left and all these different things that I have to worry about. We're going to walk you through it. We're going to prepare you how to fill all these things out. And it's going to be, while a stressful process, one that you're going to adapt to quickly and is going to lead to really positive experiences for you, for your sponsor, and for your teaching team. So wish you luck. We'll see you on the next concept session.